Hi everybody, I'm gonna go do Animation Academy and I'm gonna draw Wally. Thanks for watching.
Join Molly today in class to grab your boards, your papers, your pencils. How many of us are new to Animation Academy? By show of hands. Okay, quite a few of us. Thank you so much for stopping by and checking us out. Welcome back to all my alumni as well. If you take a look at the ends of your pencils, you'll notice that something is missing on the end. Shout it out. An eraser, that is correct. That is because this is what we call a rough sketch class. That means we're going to start off very light with our lines, very sketchy, kind of messy, and then once we like our shapes, we'll go back and darken up the features we want to keep later. It's a technique that animators have been using at the studios for about 100 years now. So with all this in mind, are you ready to get started on our sketches of Wally today? Yes, wonderful. First shape we're going to start off with is a square, right? He's got a boxy body. We're actually drawing Wally full body today. We're just drawing his eyes. We'll be here for like 2 minutes, right? So I'm going to start this square in like the middle of my paper here. This top line for the square is going to be pretty much right in the middle of my paper here. I'll even make a little dot for myself, and that's where I'll start sketching out this square about the size of like a Post-it note, a floppy disk, if you still know what that is, a Rubik's Cube. This does not have to be a neat square by any stretch of the imagination. This can be nice, messy, sketchy. You know, Animation Academy is actually the only place on Disney property where you're encouraged to be just a little bit sketchy, so yeah. I have this square sketched out here. I also need some guidelines to help me proportion out Wally here. First guideline is going to go right down the center of this square, cutting it in half from top to bottom. And then I'm going to draw a horizontal line in the top third of this square here, from left to right. I'm going to draw in one more guideline for myself. It's going to be probably about the width of the top of your square here, right towards the bottom of your paper here, just sketching out this floating horizontal line here. This is going to act like our ground plane for Wally, so he has something to rest on. It can help us place in his tires. Let's go ahead and sketch that out now. Kind of get the silhouette down for Wally before we add in the finer details here. I'm going to use this horizontal line that I drew here, right in the top third, and see how it's extending out just a little bit from my square? I want to keep that line, and I'm going to head it to the end here, and I'm going to bring down this vertical line towards that ground plane that I drew for myself. So we have an upside down L on either side of my paper here. To make it look like the wheels are actually attached to his body and not just sort of stapled on the sides or glued on the sides, I want to draw in this little vertical line right on the inside of my square here to show that the wheels are sort of sitting inside of these little wells. That's really all you need for the tires. We can go and add in some more details later, but for now I want to add in some more of the silhouette for Wally here. Next thing I want to add in are going to be his hands. His hands are kind of like claws, right? So that he can do his job very well. What does Wally do? Yeah, he picks up trash. He's like a trash compacting robot, right? So he uses those claws to like grab at the trash, grab at the compacted trash, right? So at this angle, they're gonna look like little flower pots or takeout box shapes. They're just gonna be resting right at the sides of his body. Wally, he's a pretty timid character, right? Kind of shy at times. If we keep his hands really close to his body, like he's sort of resting them within himself, then it kind of adds to that nature, kind of tells a story with our sketches here. That maybe he's a little bit more timid. So I'm drawing in this diagonal line here, right at the corner of my square, almost like a staple here. And I'm bringing in these two diagonal lines towards the center, ever so slightly getting closer to each other as they head to the center of my square. And then I can just cap it off with another diagonal line there. That's all you need for the hands. And I'll do the same on the other side. He does technically have a thumb as well as these like two claws. But for now, at this angle, I'm just going to see sort of this flower pot shape again. Let's add in some details for the hands as well, add in that kind of claw texture. I'm gonna add in these little rectangles here right at the top, in the middle here, and then I'm just gonna add in this flat line that's heading down towards the bottom of his hands. That's gonna separate his hands into those claws there for Wally. Add in that little bit of detail, and the last thing I want to add in before I really start to lock in my features is going to be his neck and his eyes here. I'm going to start by hopping to the top of my square here, right where my vertical guideline is. I'm going to add in this little rectangle here. This is going to act like the base of his neck, give it some extra support attached to his body here. Then I want this vertical line, the top of my vertical line is where the top of his eyes are going to sit. So Wally has the ability to sort of retract into his body, so if you want to make his eyes really, really low or really high, like he's looking at something high up, you can really make the eyes as tall as you want them to be. If you want them at kind of like a normal height, I would say about the length of the bottom portion of your square is about how tall you want to go with your eyes here. So I'm bringing up this vertical line here, not as high as I want it. And then from the top, I'm going to bring out these two diagonal lines, almost like an umbrella right at the top of my paper here. With this in place, I want to sketch in his eyes. Now his eyes, or the eye shape for Wally, they're based off of something we use in real life. If we were trying to look at something far away, what do you think I might be talking about? Binoculars, yeah, his eyes are based off of binoculars. The director of this movie, his name is Andrew Stanton. He was at a baseball game actually, and he saw a bunch of people looking through binoculars, and he thought they all kind of looked like different eyes, and that was one of the big inspirations for making Wally's design here. I'm making these little C curves right on either side of my vertical guideline because I want a separation between his eyes here, and then I can just go ahead and make these really big U shapes that connect all the way from one side of my diagonal line to the other. His eyes also kind of act like his eyebrows. They're sort of built into one, right? So when his eyes are at more of a down tilt, he looks more sad. He looks a little bit sadder. And if they're tilted a little bit more upwards, he might look a little bit more angry, right? So if you want to give your Wally a bit of a different expression, you're welcome to change the tilt of the eyes as well here. But with this in place, I'm going to go ahead and sketch in his neck as well. It's just going to be this rectangle here. I'll start with this horizontal line in between his eyes here, and I'm going to bring down these two vertical lines back down on either side of my vertical guideline towards that little base that we drew. Now I know we have a lot of features on our paper right now, so I want to go ahead and really start to lock some of these features in. If you're new to Animation Academy, if you've never heard that term before, locking in, it means I'm going to start to pick my favorite lines here, and I'm going to start to make them nice and dark so that they stand out against the rest of the lines on my paper. All my messy, sketchy lines will sort of fade away. So that's the power of rough sketching. If you don't have a line that you like quite yet and want to lock in, you can just sketch out a new line for yourself until you do like it, and then you can lock that one in. If you keep everything really light to start off with, then only the dark lines should be really noticed in your final sketch. So I'm going to lock in pretty much everything that I have on my paper. I just want to be careful when I'm locking in the hands or the body shape here. I don't want to lock in anything that's being covered up by the hands, because the hands are going to be sitting in front of his body here. But I'm just going to head around my sketch here, really start to lock some things down. And while I'm locking down, let's talk more about the movie WALL-E here. Like I mentioned, it's directed by a man named Andrew Stanton, and this is not his first Pixar movie. He also directed a movie about a little fish who gets lost in the big blue sea. What movie am I talking about? Finding Nemo, yeah. He also directed the sequel of that movie, Finding Dory, but that came after WALL-E, right? And Andrew Stanton for Finding Nemo was kind of inspired by his own life, like becoming a dad, right? And like feeling nervous about sending his kid out into the world. But for WALL-E, he was really inspired by silent movies. He was inspired by a lot of the silent film actors at the time, like Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin, and how they were able to convey their stories with almost no dialogue, right? They were able to make these whole movies without saying a single word. So he wanted to challenge himself to do the same kind of thing, but in an animated movie. And he did really do it successfully, right? Because a lot of this movie, the majority of this movie, is almost no dialogue, right? We don't really get any real dialogue until we get to the axiom, right? So a lot of this movie and a lot of these characters, like WALL-E and like his love interest, right? What's her name?
Eve.
Eve. Yeah, he can't really say her name right, so he goes Eva. Her name is actually Eve. But those characters, they don't have a lot of dialogue, right? They don't have a lot of the capacity to say words to each other. They're able to just communicate with just a few words and really just their actions as well, right? Speaking of Eve, she was designed actually not technically by Pixar. Pixar reached out to the team at Apple to help design Eve, right? And that's why she kind of looks like an Apple product, right? Do we expect the Eve in like a couple of years? I don't know. But that's why she has that really kind of sleek design, and she differs a lot from WALL-E in that way, right? When you look at WALL-E, you can tell he's older technology, right? What he does and what he is sort of just written right all over his body. body, right? But Eve, she's a lot more like a mystery. You can't really tell what she does or what she is just by looking at her. She's very sleek. And that's why they reached out to the team at Apple. And Pixar, Apple, they have a very close relationship. Steve Jobs helped found both of those companies. And I'm from the Silicon Valley, so I feel like I'm just gonna shout it out. Yeah, it's like my hometown. Obviously, I'm not a tech bro, but shout them out. But yeah, Steve Jobs helped found both those companies. So they have a really tight relationship, Apple and Pixar. This is not the first movie where we get to see like Apple cameos, kind of. Even in the movie Cars, there's a car that's sort of designed like an Apple car as well. I'm adding in some tire treads here for Wally here, just some horizontal lines that are heading down. That's going to give his tires some tread, make it look like they could run over all of the rough terrain that is sort of on Earth, right? But I want to go ahead and definitely add in some pupils here. Speaking of the sounds used for this movie, because I mentioned, Wally and Eve, they don't actually really have dialogue. They kind of make all these noise, say a few words, right? All the sounds for the robots in this movie were done by a man named Ben Burtt. He's probably most notably known for working on like a series of indie films not a lot of people have heard of called Star Wars. He did all the sounds for the droids in the first 3 movies, right? Actually, after he worked on Star Wars, he said he was not going to do any more robot movies. He's done with robot sounds. And then Andrew Stanton asked him to do this movie, and maybe he was so swayed by the story, he said, all right, I'll do it one more time, I'll do this movie too. Let's add in the final details here for our sketches of Wally. First thing I want to add in are some vents right over here on the left side. So I'm going to add in this little rectangle and split it up with some horizontal lines here. On the right side, I want to add basically like a battery level here. And what is Wally powered by? Solar, yeah, he's powered by the sun, right? So I'm going to add in this little picture of the sun here, as well as some horizontal lines on the right to show like his battery level. But you're welcome to get creative. You don't have to draw a sun here. Maybe you want to draw in a heart, star, maybe a piece of trash. Maybe he found Forky up there, who knows? Last thing I want to add in here is going to be his name. It's written right on the bottom here of Wally's shape here. So I'm going to start with the E here in this little circle, and then I can add in the wall. It kind of starts a little bit to the left of your vertical guideline, or you can just write it backwards if you're worried about running out of space. Wally, though, is actually an acronym. Is there a super fan out there who knows what Wally stands for? No, don't worry, I will tell you. It stands for Waste Allocation Load Lifter. And then the E stands for where he works. Where does he work? Earth, yeah, he's an Earth class robot, right? There's even versions of Wally on the Axiom, and they're called Wallies. Originally, Wally was going to be spelled W-A-L-E, but too many of the test audience members thought that his name was Whale. And they were like, that's not going to work. We need to put in another L here. I'm adding in some extra details here by adding in some ground, some extra trash here for Wally. And then I want to add in his little roach friend. I'm going to add in just this little roach hanging out here. I'm a little bit triggered because there was a roach in my apartment the other day. And so gross, and me and my roommate were freaking out, but I'm going to add in his little friend. And his name is actually Hal, after Hal Roach, who is a silent film director here. Anything else you want to add, though, is going to be considered extra credit, except for the most important thing, which is going to be your signature. Find a place on your paper and sign your name nice and big and proud. Because once you do, you finished your very own sketches of Wally. Wow. And with that, how do we do, everyone? Great, okay. Oh, we're getting like applauding ourselves. Some of us are like stunned into silence. I'm glad you all feel so great about your drawings. Did we all have fun? Yeah, that's the most important part of rough sketching, of art in general, is just having fun. I love to see these very fast. We're gonna have an art show here, okay? On the count of 3, I want you all to flip your boards and take a look around, because no one drew Wally with the statement here, okay? Ready? 1, 2, 3. Flip those boards. Let's see Wally. Great work over here on this side. I love his tires. So big. Great work down here as well. He's looking so cute. Everyone nailed the facial expressions, or facial expressions, I guess, the eyes. He's looking super, super cute. Everyone has really nice dark lines. Great work. I like the stars we added as well on our sketches. I like the eyes here up at the top. He's looking so cute on everyone's papers. No wonder you're all so positive. Oh, I like the little roach, the extra eyebrows.